This happened 2 years ago. I was a delivery driver who often worked late-night routes. The job was usually uneventful. I'd drive down quiet roads, drop off packages, and head home. But sometimes, I'd find myself on desolate stretches of highway, surrounded by fog. I've never stopped thinking about those nights. One night, I was driving home after a long shift. The highway felt empty. Thick fog wrapped around my headlights like a curtain. I was tired. My eyes burned from staring at the road. Then, I saw something on the roadside. A figure stood there just beyond the field. I couldn't make out any details, but it didn't look normal. I slowed down. My heart raced. I told myself it was just someone waiting for a ride. I shook my head and kept driving, but the figure stayed in my mind. A few nights later, on the same highway, something strange caught my eye. A light flickered in the field. It looked like a lantern. I rubbed my eyes and focused, but the light vanished. I felt a chill run down my spine. Was someone playing tricks? I didn't see anyone else on the road. As I drove, I dismissed it. It was late. I was just tired. A mile later, the tension in my chest eased. But then, I heard a loud knocking on my window. My heart stopped. I glanced over, but there was nobody there. Just the empty highway and fog wrapping around me again. I felt cold sweat on my back. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I kept driving faster, but that didn't help. I noticed headlights in my rearview mirror. A truck was behind me, but it soon disappeared, swallowed by the fog. Just the darkness again. Then, I heard the knocking again. Not just on the window this time, but on the doors of my van. My hands shook on the wheel. I looked around, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. It felt wrong, but I didn't stop. I wanted to be home. The next night, I took the same route again. I figured nothing could happen 3 times in a row, right? As I drove, I heard whispers. Quiet at first, but they grew louder. I turned off the music, straining to hear something. I thought I heard my name. Jordan. It echoed. I cursed under my breath. I felt trapped. The whispers continued, getting closer. I parked off the road, heart pounding. My breath fogged the window. I peeked outside. I had to know. The moment I turned, I saw the figure again. This time, it was closer. It wasn't still. It was moving towards me, faster than before. Panic gripped me. I slammed the van into gear and sped off. And then, in the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of something that made my blood run cold. A face. Pale and oddly familiar. I couldn't shake the feeling that it watched me, continuously, no matter how far I drove. I didn't stop until I reached home. But even now, I can still hear the whispers. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house made me jump. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying the events of that evening. By morning, I felt drained. I had to leave the house. Just get out. I drove to a diner down the road. It felt safer there, surrounded by people. The coffee was strong, and I tried to drown my fears in it. As I sipped, I overheard 2 truck drivers talking nearby. "Did you hear about that accident on Highway 23? One of them said. My ears perked up. I listened closely. "They say it was a ghost, or something. Folks have been seeing things on that stretch of road. Like figures in the fog." The other shrugged. "People are scared to drive it at night now." I felt a chill run down my spine. Was that the same highway? I considered asking them, but didn't want to sound crazy. Instead, I left a few dollars on the counter and headed out. As I drove back home, unease settled in my stomach. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just paranoia. But I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd heard. There had to be something to it. Later that week, I had to make another delivery on that same highway. I told myself it was just work. I couldn't avoid it. The sun dipped low in the sky as I hit the road. The highway was quiet, but this time, I kept a steady pace. No distractions. Just get it over with. As night fell, the fog rolled in thicker than before. My heart started racing. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Would I see the figure again? Would I hear the whispers? I shook my head, trying to focus. When I reached the spot where I had seen the figure last time, I slowed down. My breath quickened. Nothing. No light. No movement. Just fog swallowing everything. I felt momentarily relieved, but also foolish for doubting myself. Then, I caught something in my peripheral vision. I turned to look. That's when I saw it. A flickering light in the distance. A lantern, just like before. My stomach dropped. The last thing I wanted was to face whatever that was. But curiosity gnawed at me. I had to know if it was real. I parked on the side of the road, my heart pounding, and stepped out of the van. The air felt heavy as I approached the light. Each step sent an electric pulse of fear through my veins. Shadows danced around me as I drew closer. I could hear whispers again, soft and unintelligible. Then, everything went silent. I froze in place. That's when I noticed the figure standing in the fog, almost close enough to see clearly. My heart raced. A wave of dread swept over me. Before I could think, it turned toward me. And in that moment, I saw the face, pale and haunting. It was the same face I had seen in the rearview mirror. I stumbled back, falling onto the ground. My mind screamed for me to run, but my body wouldn't respond. I was paralyzed as the figure took a step forward, breathing heavily. I finally regained control. I scrambled to my feet and sprinted back to the van. I didn't look back until I was safely inside, slamming the door shut, but the whispers surrounded me, muffled and taunting. I started the engine and sped off. But this time, I knew deep down that things were far from over. I barely slept that night. Every noise made me bolt upright, heart racing. Morning brought a fog of exhaustion that clung to me. I needed answers, or at least a distraction. The next day, I drove back to the diner. I wanted to talk to the truck drivers, but they weren't there. Instead, I sat in a booth, nursed a cup of coffee, and tried to be invisible. My mind spiraled with thoughts of the figure. Its chilling stare burned into my memory. After a while, an older man approached me. He had graying hair and a grizzled face, the kind who'd seen too much. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, seated across from me without waiting for an invitation. I forced a smile. "Just a rough few nights." "Highway 23, huh?" he said, as if he could read my mind. My stomach twisted. "What do you know about it?" He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Something's off with that stretch. Heard stories, whispers, figures in the fog. People vanish sometimes." My pulse quickened. "Vanished?" He nodded, eyes darkening. "Never seen again. You get too close to the truth and it'll come for you." I gulped, suppressing the shiver that crawled down my spine. I should have left right then, but something kept me there. "Have you seen the figure?" He shook his head. "Just stories, but I've driven that road when the fog rolls in. Best to keep moving." His words echoed in my head as I left the diner. I felt a mix of dread and determination. I had to confront this. That night, I found myself driving back to Highway 23. The moon was hidden behind clouds, and the fog crept in, thick and suffocating. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. As I neared the place I had seen the figure, I slowed down. A knot of fear tightened in my stomach. It was eerie, that silence wrapping around me again. But I didn't want to just drive past. This time, I had to see what was really there. Pulling over, I stepped out into the damp air. The night felt alive, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. I clutched my flashlight, scanning the dark. That's when I noticed something not too far off. Movement in the fog. Frozen, I could feel my heart pounding in my ears. Was it another figure, or just my imagination? I took a cautious step forward, breath held tight in my chest. The whispers returned, clearer now. A mix of indistinguishable sounds and something I almost recognized. Then I saw it, a small object lying in the dirt, half covered by leaves. My stomach dropped. I picked it up, and my hands went cold. It was a child's toy, a small cracked truck. Darkness clawed at the edges of my mind. I was trying to think when suddenly, I felt a presence behind me. I spun around, flashlight beam piercing the fog. And there it was again. The same pale face, closer this time. My legs turned to jelly as I stumbled back, flashlight shaking in my hand. It raised an arm, pointing at me with a chilling stillness. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I turned and ran blindly toward the van, fueled by terror. As I jumped inside, I slammed the door and locked it, breathing hard. And then, in the quiet of my panic, a voice echoed faintly through the fog. "Help me!" It wasn't just a whisper this time. It was a plea. My heart sank, and all I could think was that I had only just begun to uncover the truth. I slammed the door shut, heart racing as I realized what I had done. I was trapped in my own car, shaking and sweating, with nothing but the fog pressing against the windows. The voice lingered. "Help me," echoing in my mind. It was a plea, one that pierced through the fear. Taking a deep breath, I fumbled for my phone. The screen lit up, casting a dim glow in the confined space. I thought about calling for help, but from who? The local police wouldn't believe me. I could already hear their dismissive laughter. Besides, I needed to understand this myself. I peered through the fogged-up glass, remembering the child's toy. Why was it there? I hadn't seen any children on that road. Maybe it belonged to the figure. A chill crawled down my spine as I thought about the implications. Someone was missing. Before I could spiral further into dread, I heard a soft thud against the van's side. My head whipped around and my breath caught. There was a silhouette, just outside the window. Fear seeped into my veins. I strained to see, but the fog hung thick like a curtain. "Help me!" The voice was clearer now, rising above the stillness. It was coming from the direction of the sound. I gripped the steering wheel, torn between the urge to run and the desire to find out what was happening. The figure had made its presence known, but why was it asking for help? Slowly, I cracked the window open just an inch. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling. "Are you there?" Nothing. The silence felt heavier. I slid the window a bit more, straining to hear anything over my pounding heart. I needed to know. "Please." The faint voice broke into a whisper. "Help me." This time, desperation seeped into the plea. I couldn't ignore it. My instincts screamed at me to drive away. But could I really leave someone behind, especially a child? Heart racing, I opened the door, but glanced back at the toy sitting on my passenger seat. I couldn't leave it, not with so many questions. I reached for it, hesitated, and slipped it into my pocket. The moment I stepped out, the figure shifted in the fog, a fleeting shadow, barely distinguishable. Panic surged. "Where are you?" I shouted. The figure darted, and I instinctively followed, realizing my feet moved faster than my mind could process. The air felt electric, charged with the weight of something terrible lurking in the darkness. Then it happened. A sudden deafening clang echoed from deeper within the fog. My heart sank. It sounded like metal striking metal, like the gate to something I shouldn't be near. "Stop!" I called out, breathless. But all I could hear was the chilling rustle of the trees. I turned back, but the van looked so far away. I felt exposed out here, vulnerable to whatever this darkness held. Then, without warning, I saw movement again. A flash. It was closer this time, and before I could catch my breath, I stumbled, falling hard against the cold ground. I turned and looked back, my heart in my throat. The figure emerged from the mist, clearer now, pale skin, wide eyes. But what shocked me the most was the expression on its face. It wasn't just fear, it was longing, desperation. And then, abruptly, the plea transformed into something more urgent. A scream that shattered the night. That sound, raw and filled with anguish, locked my gaze in place. I had a decision to make. Keep running or confront whatever this was. My hands trembled at my sides, but I knew I couldn't turn back now. The figure hesitated in the mist, its wide eyes searching mine. I felt drawn to it, yet every instinct screamed at me to run. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stand. "What do you want?" My voice was barely a whisper. In response, the figure took a tentative step forward, and just like that, the fog shifted, revealing more of its trembling form. It was a girl, maybe 8 or 9, wearing a thin dress that fluttered like leaves caught in the wind. Her hair hung in tangled strands that framed her face, and dirt marred her bare feet. I jolted at the sight. "Help me!" she said again. But this time the words were laced with urgency, almost like a command. She looked over her shoulder, her small frame trembling. "They're coming!" A chill ran through me. "Who's coming?" I asked. But she didn't answer. Instead, she turned and darted deeper into the fog. Without thinking, I followed, adrenaline pushing down my fear. The fog was thick, limiting my vision. The girl moved gracefully, her feet barely making noise as she darted between trees and bushes. I felt like I was chasing a shadow, her presence both ethereal and haunting. Panic bubbled inside me as images of my childhood fears surfaced. What if this was a trap? Then I saw something flash in the distance, a flicker of light. The girl paused, glancing back at me, her expression pleading. "Please, we have to hurry." Before I could respond, I stumbled. My foot caught on a root, and I fell against the trunk of a large tree. Pain shot through me, but I was too caught up in the moment to care. "Wait!" I called out, but she was gone, swallowed by the fog. I struggled to my feet, heart racing again. Where had she gone? I was standing alone in an eerie silence, every sound amplified, the distant rustle of leaves, the soft whistle of the wind. Then I heard it. A low, guttural growl, reminiscent of something primal. My breath held. The sounds seemed to come from the same direction the girl had gone. The instinct to flee cracked through me. I turned, ready to sprint back toward the van, but my gut twisted. What if she was in danger? A sudden, blinding light pierced the fog, illuminating what lay ahead, a dilapidated structure. The walls were crumbling, and the windows were boarded up, eerily resembling something from a nightmare. I felt trapped between running back to safety and charging forward to whatever unknown awaited me. That's when I saw the girl again, standing at the entrance with a look I couldn't quite read. It was a mix of hope and something much darker. I took a cautious step forward. "Are you okay?" Her voice was barely audible. "They're coming. You need to come inside." The growling intensified, reverberating through the air like a warning. I hesitated, but I could see the urgency in her eyes. I had to make a choice then, right there in the suffocating fog. Before my heart could answer, the sound crescendoed, a rumble that seemed to shake the ground beneath me. The decision was made in an instant. I rushed toward her, ready to confront whatever awaited us within. As I crossed the threshold, I caught a glimpse of something moving behind me in the fog. Shadows flickered at the edges of my vision, and then everything went dark. I stumbled as I entered the darkness. My eyes strained to adjust, but the inside of the building was swallowed by blackness. A heavy smell lingered, something musty and decayed. I took a cautious step forward, trying to listen for any sign of the girl. "Hello?" My voice quivered in the silence, but no reply came. Panic tightened in my chest. The growling outside was muted now, a distant echo of whatever was lurking just beyond the walls. I edged further into the room, feeling the surface of a wooden table beneath my fingertips. Dust coated everything, and I sneezed, the sound painfully loud. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my eye. I turned, and the girl appeared again, materializing from the shadows. "We have to hide," she said, urgency flooding her voice. Her wide eyes darted to the boarded window. "Why? What's out there?" I asked, instinctively taking a step closer to her. "There's no time," she hissed, pulling at my arm. In that moment, a loud bang resonated from the entrance, shaking the building. My heart raced. Something was here. I could hear heavy footsteps stomping outside. Each sound vibrated through the ground, closer and closer. I glanced around, searching for a place to hide, but the room was bare. The girl gestured toward a trap door half hidden beneath a rug in the corner. "Quick, this way!" she urged, her small frame trembling with fear. We dropped down just as the door creaked open above us. My heart raced even faster. I was sliding into darkness again, this time with a sense of dread clinging to me. The opening closed with a dull thud, and we found ourselves in a cramped space, the air heavy with stale moisture. "What happens now?" I whispered, too aware of how vulnerable we were. The girl pressed her finger to her lips. I strained to listen. The footsteps had stopped. Silence reigned above us, but unease seeped into the cramped space. Then, from somewhere above us, I heard voices, low and distorted, like a horrifying choir. "Find her! She can't escape! Did you see her?" A chill ran down my spine. "Who are they?" I barely managed to whisper, panic rising again. The girl's eyes widened as she shook her head. "I don't know, but they won't stop searching." Before I could respond, a cold breeze swept through the trapdoor cracks, causing my skin to crawl. Something was reaching for us, something that wanted to drag us back into the light. Then a sudden noise, a loud crash, echoed from above, shaking the entire space we hid in. I gripped the girl's hand tighter, trying to contain the terror brewing inside me. "Do you think they're coming down?" I asked, hardly believing my own question. "They will if we don't get away." The determination in her voice was a stark contrast to my fear. That's when I heard it. Another presence, moving closer to the trapdoor, slow and deliberate. My breath caught in my throat. We weren't alone. The pounding of my heart echoed through the darkness as I turned toward the girl. "Are you ready?" I whispered, knowing that it was time to either fight or flee. But just before we could make our move, the trapdoor creaked open again, and I felt the cold weight of dread settle over us. Someone was coming down. I held my breath as the trapdoor opened. A sliver of light broke through the darkness, revealing a figure silhouetted above us. I couldn't see their face, but the outline was unmistakably human. The girl beside me shrank back, her grip on my hand tightening. "Stay quiet," I whispered, barely able to keep my voice steady. The creaking of the door echoed in the silence, like a warning bell in my ears. The footsteps above were slow, measured, each one filled with intent. "Where are you, little girl?" came a gravelly voice, laced with malice. It sent a deep shiver through me, echoing my growing fear. My instincts screamed for us to move, to run, but we couldn't risk detection. I glanced around the tiny space, feeling like a trapped animal. The girl looked up at me, her wide eyes pleading. There was something more to this. She knew more than she was telling me. The figure above bent lower, casting a shadow across the opening. "Come on now, you can't hide forever. You will make it easy on yourself if you just come out." I steadied my breath and tried to focus. "What do we do?" I murmured. I think we can slip past them," she said, barely above a whisper. The breath I took in felt heavy. The idea of crawling past whoever was upstairs filled me with dread. Then, without warning, the figure lunged forward. A hand reached through the jiggle of the trapdoor, groping into the darkness. My body jolted, and I instinctively pushed the girl further back into the shadows. The searchlight of that hand felt like death itself, eager to drag us back into whatever chaos lived outside. Suddenly the room above cracked with frantic voices. "Where'd she go? Check under the rug." Panic surged through me. I could hear the sound of something heavy being tossed aside. The hidden trapdoor was not secure. They would find us in no time. "Now!" I whispered urgently, pulling the girl towards the side of the small space. But as we shifted, my foot caught on something. I stumbled and fell to the ground, landing with a thud. I felt the ground tremble, and a cacophony of shouts erupted above us. Footsteps rushed to the trapdoor, and I cursed silently. We had to act. Before I could pull the girl with me, she edged closer to the trapdoor, peering up through the opening. "We can't let them catch us." Her voice trembled but held a hint of defiance. I swallowed hard. "We must go, now!" Just as I grabbed her arm to pull her back, a flash of movement darted into my view. A face appeared, eyes widened with empty hunger. The figure breathed heavily, and I could see its features clearer now, twisted and wrong, like something out of a nightmare. "Found you," it rasped. My heart hitched in my throat. I didn't think, I just acted. I pushed the girl hard, urging her to move back, knowing we were running out of time. But in my panic, I lost my footing and fell backward. The last thing I saw before everything went dark was the figure's gnarled hands reaching for us. Suddenly I jolted awake. I was lying on cold cement, the air sharp and stale. Confusion washed over me. Had it all been a dream? But as I looked around, the reality sunk in. I was inside an abandoned loading bay, long forgotten. Just as forgotten as the horrors that had been chasing us through the trapdoor. Then I heard a soft whimper nearby. I turned quickly, and my heart sank. The girl was there, but she was not alone. A shadow moved in the corner, a familiar presence. I recognized the figure. "Please don't let them find us," she cried out, her voice trembling. But as I stood up, I felt another wave of dread wash over me. I was not safe here. The threat was closer than I had realized. I glanced around the loading bay, my heart racing. The dim light barely penetrated the layers of dust, casting long shadows that danced unpredictably. The girl was shaking, her eyes darting around as if expecting the gnarled figure to leap from the shadows at any moment. "Who is that?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. The figure in the corner stirred, and I recognized them. Jake, my old friend from the neighborhood. But in the failing light, his face looked drawn and ghostly, as if he'd seen things I couldn't begin to comprehend. "We need to leave," he said, his voice hoarse. "They'll come for us. They know we're here." "Who knows?" I asked, panic bubbling up inside me. "What happened?" He looked between the girl and me, his expression darkening. "It's complicated. We can't talk here." He glanced at the door in the far wall, then back at us. "We're safer outside." But the thought of returning to the open air, where those figures roamed, paralyzed me with fear. "I can't just trust you. You just appeared out of nowhere. What do you know about those things?" Jake ran a hand through his hair, frustration etched on his face. "I know they're hunting us. They're not just some crazy people, they want something. I've seen it, what they do to kids." The weight of those words wrapped around me, tightening like a vice. "What do you mean? What do they do?" "They take them." His voice dropped to a whisper. "And they don't come back." His eyes turned glassy as if he was remembering. "I barely got away myself. I thought I lost them, but they always find you." The girl whimpered again, and I moved to comfort her. "What do you want from us?" I asked, focusing back on Jake. "What do we do?" "We need to get to the highway," he replied, urgency tinged with desperation. "That's our best chance. If we stay here, we'll be trapped." Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed from the entrance, making all of us freeze. The ground vibrated beneath us, and I could hear voices, deep, gravelly ones, much like the one I'd heard before. "They're here," Jake hissed, eyes wide with fear. "We don't have much time." I grabbed the girl's hand and pulled her closer. "Come on, we have to move." We slipped out from behind the crates, staying low as we made our way toward the exit. My mind raced. What if we ran into them again? What if it was a trap? Reaching the door, Jake pushed it aside carefully, and we stepped out into the night. The moon hung heavy in the sky, casting an eerie glow on the desolate landscape. But the haunting quiet was shattered by a distant cackle, a sound that made my blood run cold. That's when I saw it. A dark figure moving in the shadows, eyes glinting like a predator stalking its prey. My breath caught in my throat. "Go!" Jake urged, pulling us forward. But I hesitated, staring back at the figure that made my gut churn with terror. I could feel the weight of its gaze, like it saw right through me, the same way it must have seen the girl all those years ago. I turned, adrenaline pushing me into a sprint. Everything depended on moving fast, and I could feel the pull of panic trying to drag me down. If we didn't run, it might be too late. As we darted down a narrow alley, my mind swirled with dread. We might not escape this time. The only thing I knew for sure was that I needed answers. And soon, I would have to confront whatever darkness was chasing us. The alley opened up into a wide street, but the moon's light felt more like a spotlight, exposing us to whoever was hunting. I glanced back, scanning for movements. The figure had vanished into the shadows. My heart raced, but I couldn't stop. I had to trust Jake, even if I didn't completely believe him yet. "We need to get to the highway," I repeated, trying to convince myself of our plan. "But how far is it?" "Not far," Jake said, leading us deeper into the night. But the way his voice wavered made me wonder if he was lying. The girl squeezed my hand tighter, her small fingers trembling. I couldn't blame her. Then we heard it again. A low growl, rumbling from the darkness ahead. Panic spiked in my chest. Whatever it was close. What was that? I breathed, moving a little quicker. Just keep going, Jake replied, his eyes darting around. They like to play games. We can't be their next victims. We rounded a corner, and I suddenly spotted a sign. Highway 27, 2 miles. Relief washed over me. It was close. We just had to keep moving. The streetlights flickered, casting shadows that seemed to leap closer as the growl morphed into laughter. High, shrill, and unnervingly familiar. The voice was mocking, like it enjoyed the chase. Did you hear that? I turned to Jake, panic rising again. That's not just some random person. Jake nodded sharply. Just ignore it. Focus on getting to the highway. But the laughter grew louder, mixing with hurried footsteps echoing behind us. I dared not look back, my instincts screaming that doing so would only slow us down. Just ahead, I spotted a cluster of trees, the perfect cover if we needed it. "We've got to hide!" I shouted, yanking the girl towards the trees. Jake followed, and we ducked low, pressing against the trunk of a gnarled oak. Then, everything went dark. The streetlights flickered and died, plunging us into a black void. I could hardly breathe. It was too quiet now. The laughter faded into silence, but it felt heavier than before. "What's happening?" the girl whispered, her voice trembling. "Just stay quiet," Jake answered, though I could tell he was struggling to keep his own fear at bay. Moments stretched on like hours until I noticed something. A soft sound near us. It was rhythmic, coarse, like something scraping against the ground. My heart raced again. "Do you hear that?" I asked, my pulse pounding in my ears. Jake nodded slowly, his face pale. "Yeah, it's close." Suddenly, the darkness was shattered by a blinding light. A car sped past, illuminating everything for a split second. I caught a glimpse of the kind of figure I dreaded. Tall, gaunt, with twisted limbs that didn't seem to belong. Then it disappeared into the shadows just as quickly as it came. "That wasn't a person," I gasped, my voice barely breaking through my shock. "No," Jake breathed. "It's worse." Before I could ask what he meant, the light faded, and the vehicle's tires screeched to a halt just up the road. The laughter returned, this time echoing with authority, the sound rippling out in waves. Something was coming toward us fast. A voice broke the silence, gravelly and commanding. "Search the area. They can't have gone far." I locked eyes with Jake as the realization hit me. We were being hunted, and whatever was coming wasn't going to stop until it found us. With adrenaline surging through me, I looked at the girl, whose eyes were wide with fear. "We have to move," I said, urging them both to follow me deeper into the trees, hoping that amid the shadows we could find some way out of this nightmare. The branches crackled beneath our feet as we pressed further into the trees, the oppressive darkness around us closing in. The laughter faded into silence, but I knew better than to feel relieved. Those things were out there, lurking just beyond the reach of sanity, searching for us with an insatiable hunger. "Do you think they saw us?" the girl asked. Her voice, once filled with desperation, now trembled with fear. "I don't know," I whispered back, my body taut with anxiety. "But we can't stop moving." Jake led the way, his instincts sharp as we ducked and maneuvered through the underbrush. My heart raced, the echoes of their growls still ringing in my ears. We had to find the highway, and fast. I felt a strange mix of urgency and guilt. Why had I gotten involved with something so clearly beyond my understanding? The bustling sounds of life may as well have been a distant memory. The moment we veered off the beaten path, it was as if we had crossed into another realm entirely, a reality where nightmares roamed free. "Up ahead there's a break in the trees," Jake said suddenly, pointing toward a thinning in the branches. We hurried forward, adrenaline surging as we stumbled into an open area bathed in the gradually returning moonlight. It seemed to hang just above the treetops, beckoning us. In the distance, I could finally make out the familiar outlines of the highway, vast and unyielding. "Can you see it?" My voice cracked with hope. "Yeah," Jake said, casting one last glance over his shoulder, his face painted with latent fear. "But we need to hurry before they catch us." As we dashed toward the highway, I felt a prickling sensation creep up my spine, this overwhelming sense of being chased. The faint, echoing growls started again, closer this time, as if the shadows were coming alive. "Faster!" I shouted, pushing through the tangled limbs of trees, my heart pounding furiously. Suddenly the skies flickered, and everything went dark. There wasn't time for caution. With our hearts in our throats, we began to run harder than ever. The highway was only a couple 100 yards away. I could see it glimmering under the pale light of the moon, just beyond the trees. I took a deep breath, praying for the strength to carry on even as a shadowed figure loomed near, a grotesque silhouette against the brightness. "Jordan!" Jake called out, panic in his voice. "Look!" I glanced back, and my blood ran cold. The figures had materialized. It was grotesque and towering, its limbs outstretched as it probed the darkness for us. The girl was right on my heels, her tiny footsteps barely making a sound, but I could hear the sound growing, a raucous chorus from the shadows, taunting us. "They're coming! They're coming!" "We're almost there!" I yelled back, though fear twisted deep inside me. I pushed myself harder, crossing the open gap between the trees and the asphalt. Just as we reached the edge of the highway, I could see headlights approaching, two bright beams cutting through the darkness, illuminating the road. I waved my arms frantically, the hope of safety filling me. I knew we had to reach the glow, to make it to the car before it was too late. "Run!" I shouted, my voice cracking with desperation. We burst out onto the highway, glaring headlights approaching rapidly. I could barely hear their tires whisper against the road as they slowed. In that moment of imminent safety, the girl stumbled, her legs folding beneath her. "I can't!" she gasped. I grabbed her, pulling her up just as the vehicle came to a stop beside us. The driver's face was stern, eyes wide with confusion. "What's going on?" a man shouted, barely giving us a chance for explanation. "They're after us," I cried, my breaths labored. "We need to go now." Without hesitation, he nodded, swinging the door open and motioning us in. I pushed the girl inside, clambering in after her, my heart racing. As we peeled away, tires screeching against the pavement, the night fell silent once more. I risked a glance back, searching for the shadowy figures as they faded out of sight. But the thought lingered. The girl's face burned in my mind, pale, desperate, caught between worlds. In the car's safety, relief began to settle, but that shadow of dread still clung to me. "How did that happen?" the driver asked, looking at us in disbelief as we sped down the highway. "I don't know," I murmured, staring out at the dull stretch of black before us. "But it's not over. I can still hear them." Still, the fading warnings echoed like an unwanted prayer in my mind as we drove into the unknown. The highway rolled on endlessly into darkness, and somewhere in my gut, I knew that the night was far from over. I might have escaped for now, but would I ever truly escape the whispers that haunted me? Would we ever unravel the mystery of the girl who had led me into the fog? Questions lingered, the fog never truly lifted, and with it an uncertainty began to fester. Maybe I'd never know if the horrors of that night were real or imagined, but the truth was, some shadows never fully leave you.